Hello everyone. I share real stories that I know and I'm sure you will like them. Enjoy watching and don't forget to like.
The house cleaner found my something private of mine tucked behind the couch, and something in his eyes shifted. He didn't say a word, but he didn't look away either. That's when everything started to change between us. My name is Claire. I'm 46 years old, and for most of my adult life, I've been someone's wife, someone's mother, someone's rock. But lately, I've felt like no one's anything. My husband, Richard, is a good man, a provider, an accountant with a tidy smile and a predictable life. We've been married for 22 years, and I could recite our routine in my sleep. He kisses my cheek at 7:12 every morning, drinks his coffee with 2 sugars and skim, then disappears behind spreadsheets until 6:30. We eat, we clean up, we watch whatever's on. Then he rolls over, and we sleep. That's our life. We raised 2 boys who are now in college. The house is quiet. Too quiet. Sometimes I stand in the hallway just to hear the tick of the thermostat, the hum of the refrigerator. Silence has a sound. I hear it everywhere now. It was Richard's idea to hire a cleaner. Said it was time I stopped playing house now that the nest was empty. Treat yourself, he told me, as if outsourcing the dusting would suddenly fill the void of conversation or affection. But I agreed. I didn't expect anything to come of it, and I certainly didn't expect him. His name was Luca. The agency told me he was 34, that he'd just moved back to the States from Florence, and that he specialized in discreet, high-end service. I didn't think much of that phrase until I opened the door. He was tall, not the kind of tall that's lanky, but composed, like a column. His hair was dark, a little too long, tied back casually. And his voice. He greeted me in a low, polite tone that felt warm in my ears. "Good morning, Mrs. Bennett." I remember fumbling with the key, suddenly aware of the robe I hadn't thought twice about wearing. It hit just above the knees. I hadn't worn makeup. My hair was still damp. He didn't stare. But he looked. Not in the way men leer. In the way someone notices you. He walked through the house slowly, taking mental notes. He didn't rush. He didn't fill the air with awkward talk. He was calm, controlled, and I found myself watching him. The way he folded towels, perfect, precise. The way he paused at the bookshelves, reading titles I hadn't touched in years. And once, when I was on the phone in the kitchen, I caught him glancing at the photos on the fridge. One of Richard and me on a beach. His eyes stayed there just a second too long. He didn't say much, but his silence said everything. The 3rd week it happened. I had just finished a workout. Nothing impressive, just something I stream in the living room to pretend I'm still trying. I left my leggings and sports bra draped on the couch and went to shower. It wasn't like he'd be in before 10. But I was wrong. He came early. And when I came out of the shower in my robe, hair still dripping, I nearly collided with him in the hallway. His hand went up, instinctively. Not to touch me, just to brace the air between us. Like he was studying the moment. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "I thought you were out." My heart was racing, partly from the surprise, partly from something else. "It's fine," I replied. I wasn't sure it was. Later, I found one of my things, something I'd worn, was neatly folded on the coffee table. A small note beside it. Didn't want to vacuum it up. Figured it was important. L. He signed it with just the letter. I stared at the paper longer than I should have. My cheeks burned. I started timing my showers differently after that. I wore lighter robes. Left doors slightly ajar. Not because I wanted anything to happen. I told myself that. But because I noticed the way my pulse quickened when I heard the front door unlock. I caught him humming once, something in Italian, while wiping down the windows. I asked him what it meant, and he just smiled. "You'd blush," he said. "You don't know me that well," I shot back. But maybe he did. Or maybe I wanted him to. Each week, something small shifted. He asked if I'd read a certain book on the shelf. I said I had, years ago. The next week, he asked what I thought of the ending. He'd gone and read it. He started bringing his own polish for the floors. Said mine deserved better. Was that a line? If it was, I didn't mind. Then came the afternoon with the wine. I was sitting at the kitchen island, glass half full, scrolling through a photo album. The boys, their messy smiles. Me in a bathing suit I haven't worn in years. He didn't knock that time. Just walked in, quiet as always. I looked up. Want a glass? I asked before I could stop myself. He hesitated, just for a beat. Then he smiled. If you're offering. We sat. Not close, but not far either. He sipped, looked around. You keep a beautiful home. You make it look that way, I replied. There was a pause. His eyes stayed on mine a moment too long. My cheeks flushed. He noticed. Then he reached for the album. Is this your family? I nodded. Told him stories. Laughed about my son who never cuts his hair. Mentioned, lightly, that my husband works a lot. He listened. Really listened. And when I looked at him, I felt it again. That thing I hadn't felt in years. I mattered. 2 weeks later, it happened. The moment I still replay in my mind, over and over. I had misplaced a set of keys. Not unusual. I'm forgetful with small things. I tore the kitchen apart. Luca was in the other room, wiping down the blinds. I called out, frustrated. I swear I just had them. He walked in, slow, deliberate. May I help? We ended up in the living room, searching between cushions. I bent down, tugged at the edge of the couch, and that's when I saw it. A pair of my something private of mine, a whisper of black cloth I'd forgotten. Forgotten during laundry. Hidden between the cushions. Before I could grab them, his hand reached down. Picked them up. He didn't flinch. Didn't make a joke. He just looked at me. And in that moment, something shifted. The air between us thickened. His expression changed, softened. He placed the fabric gently on the table and straightened slowly. I stood there, frozen. My breathing shallow. He leaned in, not touching, not close enough to be inappropriate, but enough that I could smell the citrus of his cologne. You're more careful than that, he said softly. It wasn't the words. It was how he said them. Like he knew something about me I hadn't said aloud. I couldn't speak. Couldn't move. And then, the front door opened. Richard was home early. Luca stepped back, straightened his shirt, picked up the vacuum, and walked to the hallway like nothing had happened. But everything had. Because I was standing there, flushed and shaken, with my husband's keys in one hand and a folded piece of lace in the other. The next morning, I couldn't make the bed. I stood there, staring at the wrinkled sheets, still rumpled from a night of tossing and turning, his side barely touched, mine a mess. Richard had fallen asleep by 10. I hadn't. I lay there, my body motionless, but my mind replayed every second. The way Luca looked at me, like he saw a version of me even I had forgotten. I could still feel the heat in my cheeks. The silence between us after he found my something private of mine. The moment that hovered like a held breath, one heartbeat too long, one look too deep. Nothing had happened, but something had changed, and I couldn't shake it. When I went downstairs, the note was still there. He'd left it beneath the vase, folded once, like always. I cleaned the back stairs. The draft was coming from there. L. No mention of what happened. No flirtation. No apology. Just quiet acknowledgement. I held the note for a long time. My hands trembled. I wasn't cold, but I wrapped my sweater tighter. The scent of his cologne still lingered faintly in the air. And I stood in that silence, wondering if I had just imagined it all. The days that followed stretched like elastic, tight, uncomfortable, full of tension I couldn't release. I avoided being home when he came. Said I had errands, lunches, appointments. But I've always left something undone. A book on the table, a cardigan on the banister. And when I came back, I knew he'd seen it. It was a dance, a silent game of emotional tag, Each time I found the smallest signs he'd been there, fresh flowers placed without comment, a quote scribbled on the back of a receipt, I felt something pull at me. It wasn't lust. Not exactly. It was something quieter, deeper, a craving to be noticed. Then, one Tuesday, the power went out. A storm had knocked out the grid. I was home, sipping coffee in a candlelit kitchen, scrolling through the news. The doorbell rang. It was Luca. He stood there, rain clinging to his jacket, hair damp. His usual control softened. "I can come back tomorrow," he offered. I shook my head. "No, come in." I don't know why I said it. I just didn't want to be alone. He peeled off his jacket slowly. His shirt underneath was just slightly damp. He looked different. Less polished. More real. We didn't clean. We didn't even pretend. We sat on the couch, a blanket draped over my lap, and talked. He told me about Florence, his mother, the job he left behind. I told him about the life I'd built around someone else's habits. There was a moment, soft, careful, where his hand brushed mine. He didn't hold it, just touched it, barely. But the electricity between our skin was stronger than anything the storm had taken down. I looked at him. He looked at me. And I said the words I knew I couldn't unsay. "I miss being seen." He didn't speak, just moved his hand, gently, to my wrist. I let him. We sat like that, the candle flickering beside us, his touch a silent understanding. We didn't kiss. We didn't even move closer. But we crossed a line we couldn't uncross. And it wasn't the kind of betrayal you scream about. It was the kind that lives quietly in your chest, like a secret you don't want to tell, but never forget. 2 weeks passed. I avoided Richard more than usual. Said I was tired. Said I was stressed. Said all the things you say when the truth is too sharp to speak. Luca and I didn't talk about that day. But something had changed. The way we moved around each other. The silence between us was thicker now. Charged. Then, on a Friday evening, Richard came home with a folder. Thick. Manila. He dropped it on the kitchen counter. "What's this?" I asked. He didn't answer. Just opened it. Slowly. Inside were printed screenshots. Notes. Time-stamped entries. Camera stills. The back stairwell. The living room. The hallway. My breath caught. We didn't have cameras. Not that I knew of. Richard's voice was calm. Too calm. I put them in after the car break-in. "You said you wanted to feel safer." I had. A year ago. I'd forgotten. He slid one photo forward. It was me, sitting on the couch, Luca's hand on mine, the candlelight catching the exact moment my guard had fallen. "I didn't want to believe it," he said. "But then I saw your face." My knees buckled. I sat down hard. "We didn't," I began. But the words sounded weak. He shook his head. "I don't care what you did. I care that you wanted to." Silence. "I'm not stupid, Claire," he added. "I know what neglect looks like. I've felt it for years. But I stayed. I kept trying. I thought we were safe." The air felt thin. He stood up, walked to the fridge, took out a beer. And then, without looking at me, he said it. "I slept with someone too." My breath hitched. "Who?" I asked. He turned, held my gaze. "Someone you know. But I won't tell you who. Because I want you to wonder. Just like I wondered." He took a sip. Calm. Cold. "I've already talked to a lawyer," he said. "We'll keep it quiet. Fair. But this." He tapped the folder. "This is where we end." He walked upstairs, left the folder open. And I sat there, in the same place where Luca had once touched my hand, staring at the fragments of a life that had unraveled silently, piece by piece. Luca never came back. I canceled the service. Never explained. Never replied to his last message. "Are you okay?" I didn't answer. I didn't know. The house is quiet again. But not like before. Now the silence is heavy. Not empty, just full of everything unsaid. I sleep on one side of the bed. The left. The right stays cold. The ring? He left it in the dish by the sink. Not a note. Not a word. Just silver. Cold. Final. And I left everything else.